Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, August 15th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about what's happening in Afghanistan and around the world as the United States faces a very large consequence of a withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, with the Biden administration announcing earlier this year around middle of April, actually maybe just 5 months ago even, that Joe Biden said that he would be withdrawing all troops from Afghanistan in an effort to end a 20-year-long war. And with the Democratic Party in a very vulnerable position ahead of 2022, we also will be discussing the political implications of what is unfolding in Afghanistan, because it holds heavy political weight, even if the circumstances might not necessarily be super important to talk about just the political implications. Of course, we will get into the individual things about what's happening in Afghanistan, but you cannot deny the fact that this shows to be very negative for the Biden administration and will prove to be detrimental to the overall approval rating as the next coming days will go on, and as more polls are taken about the public reception to Joe Biden in terms of what is happening in Afghanistan. So, main takeaway so far, or the main question we should be asking, not takeaway, the main question that we should be asking is what is happening in Afghanistan? What is actually unfolding? I'm sure that many of you guys have heard plenty of things from the mainstream media. Many of you guys are up to date. But if you haven't been watching, we can quickly go through what happened in Afghanistan, starting all the way with George W. Bush, when American troops were sent into Afghanistan, and haven't really fully detracted ever since then. You know, what Joe Biden said back in April of 2021 was that he pretty much wanted to end the war in Afghanistan and allow the U.S. backed government to remain in control without the direct support of the United States, at least when it came to military power. Now, obviously, now we see that was a very big mistake, but many people applauded Joe Biden for such a move back in 2021, earlier this year. But it was still a move that faced a lot of turmoil. It was a move that was not necessarily praised by many members of the left. While, sure, I would say the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party said this was a good move, there were some very notable senators who were clearly upset about this, and barely any Republicans really agreed that this was the right move for the Biden administration. But as it stands right now, the Afghanistan government has completely overturned into control of the Taliban. Right now, the president of the former president of Afghanistan has fled the country, will not be in the country to lead the country. And the, Afghanistan government has completely gone in control of the Taliban, and they have pretty much said that they have seen a peaceful transition of power, but obviously it's not peaceful. But looking at what has happened in Afghanistan, in a matter of 2 weeks, the government has gone from being backed by the United States government to in complete control of the Taliban. I mean, Afghanistan really was at that verge in the past, and then the American military swooped in and tried to save the day, and for a long period of time was able to not necessarily ensure stability, but more so ensure power and control of the U.S.-backed government. Well, clearly now that is no longer there, and the Taliban practically has full control over the entire country. So if you want to see how CNN is essentially reporting on it, they cover some major events that have happened, saying where things stand. The first thing that they point out is that the Afghan president flees. The Taliban reached the presidential palace very quickly. I mean, in a matter of 2 weeks, the Taliban took control of over 25 cities across Afghanistan from just one on August 6th, I believe, to the 15th. So under 2 weeks. In fact, around 9 days made all the difference in this country. The Afghanistan president left the country. And as you can see here, the acting defense minister pretty much slammed the president, saying that they tied our hands behind our backs and sold the homeland. Damn the rich man and his gang, referring to the president leaving the country. In addition, the United States Embassy was evacuated in Kabul. That is the main part of Afghanistan that was never really expected to be overtaken. And that's why the president fled. This is where the presidential palace is. The U.S. Embassy is now in a position where they were trying to evacuate, and they ended up fleeing to the Kabul airport. Well, now as we hear from members down on the ground that there is airfire, there is gunfire towards these airports, toward these planes that are going in and out of Kabul. And that means that a lot of these United States citizens, a lot of people that were a part of the Afghanistan government that were helping the United States, are now forced to remain at the airport and can't be evacuated easily without major gunfire going towards these planes, going towards these evacuation ships. So all in all, what you're seeing happening here is that many United States citizens and embassy personnel are forced to stay in Afghanistan out of fear of dying by fleeing. In addition, the Afghan president fled. He is already gone. And now foreign governments are scrambling. Pretty much what is happening here is that in just 2 weeks, quite literally less than 2 weeks, the entire Afghanistan situation went from around a mild situation to the worst case scenario for the American public, or worst case scenario for the American government, and consequently really the American public. What's happening in Afghanistan is something that we really did not expect to come so quickly. When the United States announced the troop withdrawal, we didn't really think that this was going to be a direct response of the troop withdrawal. Obviously, there were reports out there that said this could occur, but the Biden administration didn't anticipate this to happen so quickly. But the Biden administration did also acknowledge that the Afghanistan government that was set in place by the United States, primarily speaking, would not be able to keep and maintain control of Afghanistan without working with other powers. And it's very clear here that either they didn't work with these other powers or the Taliban simply just wanted to sweep control. They took advantage of the situation, and they clearly were able to do it. And CNN also says, how we got here. And they talk about the United States withdrawal from the country cleared an open path for the Taliban. And that's absolutely right. You see, this was an article written on April 13th, 2021, in which the Washington Post published that the Biden administration announced that they would withdraw all United States forces from Afghanistan by September 11th, 2021. Now, that date is not a coincidence. Joe Biden wanted to end what was deemed the 20-year war at this point in time, back in April, and now is expected to continue on much longer than just 20 years, or at least a few years longer, which I would say is much longer for many of these troops that were in Afghanistan for long periods of time. But Biden announced that, on the 20-year anniversary of the unfortunate attack of 9/11 on the United States, that all of the United States troops would be removed from Afghanistan. It was meant to be some type of major play by the Biden administration that would allow this war to end, for the discussion about the war to end, for these soldiers to return home to their families or to be stationed elsewhere, serving the United States in another capacity outside of Afghanistan. But the reality of the situation is that this move that was made in April clearly holds major consequence. And the Biden administration said that this was a miscalculation. Well, a miscalculation shouldn't go this far. This is a clear and major misstep by the Biden administration, and there is absolutely no way around it. The U.S. embassy has been evacuated. They are stuck at the airport because of gunfire. In 9 days, you can actually see here on the map just how quickly Afghanistan was overtaken by the Taliban. They started out on August 6th in one portion of the bottom left region of the country, and they were able to rapidly expand across 25 capitals, provincial capitals in Afghanistan. You are talking about practically a revolution happening in a matter of 9 days, a complete overturn of local and now state government in Afghanistan. It was such a rapid rise of Taliban control that the Biden administration was probably right when they said they didn't anticipate it. Obviously, they wouldn't have made the move if they anticipated it, but it doesn't matter. This is Joe Biden's administration's partial fault. Now, the fault also lies on the former president and the president before him and the president before him. George W. Bush, of course, is blamed for putting America into this mess. Then Barack Obama is blamed for continuing it. Then Donald Trump is also blamed because he was conflicted about how to handle the situation in Afghanistan and other parts of the Middle East. You are looking at Afghanistan itself with Donald Trump actually retracting troops back in the middle of November 2020 after he lost the election and received a lot of backlash for that. You see, you can't pinpoint blame here on just one president, but we only have one president in office, which means that only one person will feel the direct repercussions of what's happening in Afghanistan. And that president is Joe Biden. So that's why you might hear an emphasis on Joe Biden's faults, on what the Biden administration did wrong, because at the end of the day, while many people are going to say, including myself, that this is only fair to put the blame on the past 3 presidents besides Biden, you still have to acknowledge that to the American public, are they going to go to the ballot box in 2022 and say, well, George W. Bush played a part in this role, so I'm voting Democrat? or Barack Obama played a role and so did Trump and so did Bush, so now I'm conflicted as to how I should think about Biden. At the end of the day, one person most recently withdrew the troops from Afghanistan, and that was Joe Biden. While Donald Trump actually had on the campaign website that he wanted to withdraw troops from Afghanistan, which was since taken off today, in fact, by Republicans, it doesn't matter. He did it in his actions. But one party was very against it. And this is also another reason why Biden is going to be blamed, no matter what, no matter how the White House tries to spin this situation. Because when Donald Trump made this move on November 16th, 2020, the Republican Party was angry. He decided that he was going to do a swift reduction of U.S. troop presence in Afghanistan. Now, I want to also point out that if you go to media coverage of this swift withdrawal back in November 16th, 2020, many people were talking about how this was intentional. This was meant over to screw Joe Biden when he got into the White House. That a withdrawal now would eventually harm the Biden administration. While I'm not trying to say that it is correct or not, I do remember that analysis of this move. But regardless, the GOP was up in arms. Mitch McConnell saying that a rapid withdrawal of United States forces from Afghanistan now would hurt our allies and delight the people who wish us harm. Then you had Marco Rubio saying the concern would be to turn into a Saigon type of situation where it would fall very quickly and then our ability to conduct operations against terrorist elements in the region could be compromised. That is my primary concern right now. Mike Rounds saying you can't simply unilaterally draw down troops. I think it's a serious mistake to unilaterally walk away. These three top Republicans across the United States Senate slamming President Trump about such a move. So if anything, these Republicans were at least right about this move. They were right in their assumption that this would increase Taliban presence and expand their control over Afghanistan. But I don't think anyone really expected it to move this quickly. Well, maybe they did. But at the end of the day, they were right about this. So Biden is certainly going to be blamed because he made that promise to withdraw all of the forces by September 11th, 2021. And he's now actually walking that back for obvious reasons, sending 1,000 troops to the airport, sending 5,000 additional troops to Afghanistan to help quell what is going on across the country. But at the end of the day, this chaos is likely not going to just last for maybe a month. This is something that seems to be very unfortunate and could likely last much, much longer. And it says here in this CNN article, they talk about what could come next. They could say that more troops could go, that terror groups could reconstitute soon after they see the United States presence has been withdrawn. The UN Security Council needs to meet. The next steps haven't been made, and Joe Biden hasn't publicly addressed the country about this situation. With the president of Afghanistan fleeing, with so much unfolding across the country, the Biden administration can only come out and say that they had a miscalculation. A miscalculation does not cut it in terms of what is happening here. Now, of course, many Republicans are going to be slamming Joe Biden for this. That is also part of this political implications discussion that we need to talk about when it comes down to Afghanistan. Donald Trump has already sent out a statement saying that that Joe Biden needs to resign in disgrace. The RNC deleted the page supporting troop withdrawal today after what has happened across Afghanistan. But looking at what Donald Trump said, essentially he's saying that Joe Biden needs to resign. Many of these other Republicans were actually right in the past. Today, they are saying that this is an embarrassment for the United States, that America leaving Afghanistan was a major mistake. And many of these Republicans aren't being hypocritical at all. They slammed President Trump for the same thing that they are slamming Joe Biden for. And that's absolutely right for politicians to do. Absolutely right. And if you look at the actual history behind this first time that Joe Biden actually planned to withdraw the troops, he was warned by some Democrats. There were some Democrats saying that this was not the right move, including Senator Jeanne Shaheen from the state of New Hampshire, saying that this could embolden the Taliban to further destabilize the country. Saying, quote, "I'm very disappointed in President Biden's decision to set a September deadline to walk away from Afghanistan." Walk away? It's very clear what she's trying to say. What do you walk away from? You walk away from an unfortunate position. You walk away from a bad job. You're quitting. That's what she was trying to say. You can tell exactly what she wants to say, but is a Democratic senator and clearly can't say it. But the thing is, These aren't harsh words that come out as a result of what is happening now. This is what she said before. Other Democrats and also the intelligence report that was released right after this announcement saying that the Afghan government will struggle to hold the Taliban at bay if the coalition withdraws support. Well, Joe Biden did it anyway. This promise made for September 11th, while monumental, only would have been monumental if it worked, if this war actually came to an end. But it is very clear at this point in time that this was not the right move for the situation in Afghanistan. And only one person is going to feel the heat for it. Even though, and I'm going to say it multiple times, this is the fault of President Bush, President Obama, President Trump, and President Biden. The American public only cares about who is in office now, and that's Joe Biden. So his approval rating is going to begin to dip. It might be in the negative in a week from today. President Biden went from being in an extremely long honeymoon period to falling off in terms of approval quickly. Over just 14 days from now, we might see this approval rating completely and dramatically change. You see, all of these Republicans that came out against Donald Trump can say to Joe Biden that I told you so. They obviously criticized him when he made this initial move, but they also criticized Donald Trump. They can easily go to their constituents, to the American people, and say, we criticized everyone regardless of who was in office, and yet they still did not listen. That Joe Biden and his administration, while warned by Republicans in the Senate, Democrats in the Senate, reports that were made about the Afghanistan government, and the only thing they could muster was that this was a miscalculation. Well, miscalculations don't end up in a complete regime control in a country. That's not a miscalculation. This is an emergency across Afghanistan. It's absolutely horrifying what is happening there. But unfortunately, this is something that is going to be viewed, at least unfortunately for Joe Biden, viewed as a direct fault of what he has done. Because Joe Biden's foreign policy approval rating has actually deteriorated quite quickly over the past couple of weeks. Joe Biden, for his entire presidency, was approved of, and still is, in terms of how he handles foreign policy. But an approval rating that was once plus 20, plus 14, plus 22, has now been reduced to just plus 1, at a high point plus 8, at a low point negative 4, fluctuating numbers that hover him around a net spread of plus 1.4%. That's very low from what it used to be. And I can tell you now that as more and more of these polls start to release, the Biden approval rating will dip, the foreign policy approval rating will dip, the American public's perception of Joe Biden will dip into the negative. Because all of this being covered by the media shows us that a major move by the Biden administration has proven to be detrimental. And obviously, it is not the fault solely of Joe Biden, but that is the way that it will be viewed. Unless some type of major political event / revelation comes up, Joe Biden is essentially screwed for the next 2-3 weeks. Unless he can try to spin it in a way that the White House has been, unsuccessful so far, but he can make it successful. He can speak directly to the American public, try to convey his argument. Right now, I'm not seeing much hope for Joe Biden. So, all in all, the main takeaway here that is happening in Afghanistan is that obviously this is absolutely horrifying. But we also do need to acknowledge the political implications of this. Afghanistan is an issue that has been tackled for the past 4 presidencies, and yet nobody seems to be able to find an accurate solution. Many people for a brief period of time thought that Joe Biden might be able to finally withdraw United States involvement from Afghanistan. Well, as we see, once the United States detracts, the Taliban advances. But one party saw this coming, regardless of who was in office. And while there were some Democrats that were there, many Republicans, many more Republicans than Democrats, were correct about this. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, all applauded the withdrawal of military personnel from Afghanistan. I forgot the word for just a quick second. I apologize for that. Many members of the left wing said that this was the right move. While there were some that said it was wrong, primarily speaking, it was mostly Republicans that criticized Trump, Biden, Obama, and Bush for many of these moves. Maybe it's the isolationist portion of the Republican Party. Maybe it's just that they recognized what many other people within the White House did as well, but that Joe Biden decided to authorize this anyway. And obviously, it was wishful thinking, and it was a miscalculation to an extent, but the White House certainly needs to come out with way more than that. Joe Biden needs to speak directly to the people, because right now, this only shows to be extremely negative for him. He needs to, get out on this and get back on track as soon as possible. Otherwise, the Democrats can kiss both of their majorities goodbye in 2022 if this continues on for the next year and a half. And I can tell you right now, if this situation is not recovered quickly, Afghanistan will not be easily won back by the United States military. And I'm not so confident that the United States military wants to entirely win it back in the first place if they continue on from this point. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my Biden-Harris administration analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.